Hi everyone, my name is Sene and I'm a PhD student at Macquarie University. Firstly, I would like to express my thanks to Professor McLeod, Dr. Cumming, and everyone who contributed to organization of this virtual conference. I'm very grateful to you all for providing a platform for us early childhood educators where we can express ourselves with a hope that someone will hear our voices. Before I start my presentation, I would like to acknowledge the Daruk Nation, the owners and traditional custodians of the land on which I live, and the Eora Nation, the owners and traditional custodians of the land where I work, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. My presentation is about the silence around the culturally and linguistically diverse background workforce in the early childhood education field. Before we go any further, I would like to clarify the term cult. It refers to people from a range of different countries, races, and ethnicities who speak different languages and follow various religious, political, and philosophical beliefs. Referring to the Ministerial Council of Immigration and Multicultural Affairs core sets and variables, a person from a cult background could be determined as someone who was born overseas or had at least one of their parents born overseas, does not have English as their first language, and has cultural and or religious values different to the mainstream community and the First Nation indigenous community. The literature review for this project, conducted using databases, scholarly books, peer-reviewed journal articles, and government reports, with the key terms listed to be used. Interestingly, at the time this literature review was undertaken, we could identify no empirical studies on cult educators in the Australian early childhood sector. In the United States, Cheroway et al. Also identified that there is a lack of research about early childhood teachers of color. They found that participants who were teacher candidates or recently graduated teachers did not have positive experiences in their education program, as they experience intentional and unintentional racism. There are, however, studies that have been conducted in Australian healthcare and aged care settings that have demonstrated the cultural diversity of this workforce and the benefits of having a cult workforce. So, in this presentation, we will explore the notion that employing cult educators and leaders in early childhood workforce may be beneficial. According to Productivity Commission reports, the number of cult children attending early childhood settings is increasing every year. Table 1 showed that the percentage of cult children in 2013 was 17.5%, which increased to 22% in 2016. The latest data we have about cult children is the 2016 data. The 2019 numbers of cult children has not yet been reported. We would like to explore who would benefit from having a cult workforce and what these benefits would be. We argue that the cult workforce in early childhood settings will be beneficial for children, for families, for educators themselves, and for early childhood sectors and the whole society. The research states that it is important for young children identity development that they feel positively about their families and recognize that they are accepted and valued in society. There are also a number of policy documents state the importance of recognizing the culture of children. For example, the Early Years Learning Framework, which is the national approved learning framework in Australian early childhood education, has a strong focus on children developing a sense of identity via outcomes. The National Quality Standard also requires educators to provide a culturally safe learning environment as stated in quality areas. Furthermore, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child supports multicultural education and cultivating children's respect for their own and others' cultures. As young children develop cultural identity by interacting with others, it would be beneficial to have a culturally diverse workforce, so children may identify more readily with cult educators, which may then assist them in developing a strong sense of identity. Having cult educators might be beneficial for all children, including those from the dominant culture. As all these cult and non-cult children are exposed to cultural diversity from a very young age, they are shaped into more accepting, tolerant, and less biased, intolerant adults. Having a cult workforce may be beneficial for families. According to Australian Bureau of Statistics data, 1 out of 3 Australians were born overseas. The number of cult children and families using early childhood education settings is increasing every year. Early childhood settings in Australia are assessed against 7 national quality standards, and Quality Area 6 focuses on the importance of establishing a positive, respectful relationship with families. In addition, to achieve an exceeding rating for any standard, 3 exceeding themes need to be reflected in service practice for each standard. One of these themes is practice is shaped by meaningful engagement with families and all the community. Given the large number of cult families using early childhood education settings, a cult workforce may be beneficial to establish that meaningful engagement with families, especially with cult families. Therefore, having a multicultural workforce in early childhood education may also be advantageous in establishing a culturally safe place for families to bring their children with confidence. Educators themselves also may benefit from having a cult workforce. A recent study conducted by Irwin et al. Reported 12 major early childhood workforce issues, along with some possible solutions. One of these issues was growing a diverse workforce. There are also other research focusing on early childhood workforce issues. For example, Cumming and Wong state that little is known about educators' psychological well-being, or ways their work environment support or inhibit their well-being. So, can we use a culturally diverse workforce as a strategy to support cult educators' psychological well-being? Cult educators may be less likely to feel singled out in a more culturally diverse team, which could promote them developing a sense of belonging. Cult workforce can also be utilized as native informants by non-cult educators to enrich their knowledge of other cultures. Being recognized for who you are as a person with your culture, religion, language, and skills gives you a feeling of belonging, which then may reflect on your relationship with children, families, and colleagues. Finally, having a cult workforce has potential benefits for the profession and broader society. A qualified, culturally diverse workforce may promote high-quality early childhood in multicultural Australia. Having a culturally diverse workforce will bring diversification to the sector, as all educators come with their own life experiences, individual skills, and ambitions. Cult educators with their cultural and linguistic knowledge, personal experiences as migrants themselves, may be able to help and connect with cult communities. They have the potential to build a bridge between cult communities and mainstream Australian society and services. As I mentioned before, in multicultural Australia, we were unable to find any empirical research about cult workforce in early childhood education. The main focus in early childhood policies, national quality standard, and early years learning framework is on supporting cult children and families. Similarly to the academic and research papers, these policies are also silent about the cult workforce. Again, as the table 1 showed, that data for the total number of children, as well as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children in early childhood education is collected and reported every year, while the number of cult children is only listed in the Productivity Commission report every 3 years. This data is not provided in the 2019 report either, All this raises the question of whether there is a reduction in interest in multiculturalism lately. We know that there were major social and political changes and huge emphasis on multiculturalism during the late 1970s and 80s. However, after more than 4 decades, while there is still a high percentage of migration, the lack of research on the cult workforce in early childhood is surprising. In summary, we know that Australia is a multicultural country. A substantial number of cult children and families use early childhood settings. Culture is an imperative part of a person's life. A culturally safe early childhood is vital for young children's development of sense of identity. However, there are things we don't know, such as how many cult employers are in the early childhood sector, which positions they are employed in, what are their experiences, whether we are providing equal opportunities for professional development, and what is the proportion of cult educators to cult leaders. We strongly argue that there is a need to urgently address this silence by calling for research into the cultural diversity of workforce, including the employment status of cult educators, their experiences and contributions, as well as opportunities for progression. Once this data is obtained, we can work towards closing the gap in the literature of cult workforce and promote practices that may lead to a more cohesive and culturally safe workplace for all. I would like to finish my presentation by sharing a small personal story. I was raised in a family where education was valued dearly. Educate yourself from cradle to grave is my motto. My father felt guilty all his life because he could not give me the opportunity to go to university as he did to my 5 brothers. Due to my mother's health issues, as the only daughter, I had to look after my brothers and the family. When I got married and came to Australia, my husband supported my dream to study from day one. I grabbed every opportunity to learn English, to learn how to cope with life in my new country, while keeping my religious and cultural identity. From time to time, I experienced discrimination as well as positive recognition. Positive recognition made me work hard to become part of this multicultural society, such as the support of my faith teachers. I am so grateful to all of them. I work hard because I didn't want to disappoint them. Discriminations. Some of them made me very upset, angry, led me to cry, reject some job offers, while some of them pushed me to resign from my job, or made me come very close to giving up on my study. However, I did choose to stand up after each negative and challenging experience. I strongly believe that the challenging experiences made me stronger, and they have a big contribution. Not as much as the positive recognition, though, to who I am today. Thank you very much for listening.